So Scott McTominay has come out and said that he was misprofiled at Manchester United as a CDM or as a defender, when in actual fact that is not his position. Welcome back to another episode on the Glory Reds podcast. And Scott McTominay, who is currently tearing it up. Okay, I'm joking. He's not tearing it up. He's playing well. All right, we're all happy for him. He's playing well. But anyway, he said that he has or was misprofiled at Manchester United. And we all know that when Scott McTominay was playing in the academy before he made his transition into the first team, he was playing more as an attacking player. But as soon as he went into the first team, he was dropped to the midfield and the defense. I don't know, my train of thought just went out the window. But yeah, he was dropped to the midfield and dropped, and in some situations he was played as a defender. Now, we had a conversation earlier about this with Ben, and we spoke about how at Manchester United, and I think you also mentioned it, where when they ask you to play in a certain position, you just play it. And I've always had a problem with it. Even before we started this podcast, when me and Ben used to chat amongst each other, I used to tell Ben that at Manchester United, we have a real problem. And I know this happens at other clubs, but at Manchester United, we have a real problem of converting players. Right? We did that with Ashley Young. We did that with Valencia. We've done that with Scott McTominay. The list goes on. All right? And every time we made that switch, it just harmed the team more than did any good for us. And I always used to wonder, why are they doing this? Now, Scott McTominay, when he came into the first team, right? And I don't even think that this is his fault alone. All right? And not to say that it was his fault that he was playing the defensive midfield position, whatever. But I think just looking at his build, we just automatically assumed in our heads that, this guy's going to be very good in the midfield because he's going to help the defense. He's a big player. He's going to control the midfield. He's going to do what he needs to do, right? So when you're sort of put in that position, we sort of just allowed ourselves to be bought into the fact that, he will actually do well in this position. When in actual fact, we saw in the later stages of his career at Manchester United, when he was playing in a more advanced position, that he was playing and excelling very well as an attacking player. He just has it in him. He has always had it in him. He has always displayed it in him. But at the time, it was so difficult because Manchester United just had problems with injuries and not getting the right players. It was a mess, all right? It was a mess. And I mentioned this before with Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial, their development through Manchester throughout the careers, how poor it has been. And the same can be said about Scott McTominay. And he's absolutely right. He just wasn't played and utilized the way he was supposed to be utilized. So it's no surprise that now that he's playing in his preferred role, the role that he was developed to play in from a young age, the role that he has always exceeded him, that he always exceeded in, it's no surprise that he's doing well. And I think that is a very key takeaway that this club needs to look into. They need to see all these players that they've moved on and see how well they're playing in that preferred position. Now, I'm not saying that every single player is going to excel. I mean, look at examples of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Aaron Wan-Bissaka used to be a winger, converted into a right back. Clearly, right back was well suited for him as opposed to a winger. And in some cases, it works out. But not in all cases. And in Manchester United, we wanted to work in all cases. And this is currently happening. Diego Dalot, right? Diego Dalot has no business playing on the left side, but he has been playing there. Now, I get it. We've had injuries. We've had no choice but to play him there. But even when we got a left back, even when we got Dogu, right, he was still being played in that position. And you wonder, but why? We've finally got a left back. Why are we still using him in that position? Move him back to his position. If Mazarawi is playing better than Dalot, then bench Dalot. It's that simple. Create that competition amongst players in their positions. But not at Manchester United. At Manchester United, we want to shuffle everything around. You know, this modern day football that we call it, where managers are like, I want every player to know every position and play every position. Look, it may work for some teams and for some clubs, but it shouldn't be a blanket statement. It shouldn't be a generalized thing, right? It doesn't mean because great and good managers come out and say these things, then every single manager needs to follow suit, regardless of if that's a manager that they look up to or that manager was their mentor, whatever. Every manager should have their own unique style of play and their own unique take on how they want to play football. Now, this thing of taking a player out of their position because of whatever you feel is best, it should be a short-term resolve. It should not be something that needs to be established or carried out throughout the season, throughout the lifetime of this player's career. If it's not working out, then drop it as soon as you can. Don't allow it to continue happening, because now we get upset with the player playing out of position. Clearly, that's not his position. And honestly, we have no leg to stand on to complain why the player's not even doing well in the first place. The culture needs to change at Manchester United. Scott McTominay has come out, he has said he was misprofiled. Man, I don't like hearing stories like this. You know, everyone always has something to say about this club. Every time a player leaves a club, leaves Manchester United, you're just holding your breath. You're just waiting for that interview to come out and for them to just offload, you know, all their experience. And I remember the last time a player left Manchester United and was like, wow, you know, at my time at Manchester United, I really developed. I learned so much. I became a better player, X and this, whatever happened. You know, over these past couple of years, players just been leaving the club and it's like, oh, thank God, you know. And I don't blame them. I'm not saying it's right. All right? But I don't blame them. I mean, we all know how toxic that club has become. We all know how it's become. So it's really no surprise Scott McTominay has come out and has said what he has said. Because a lot of the time, when players leave the club and we've heard about issues that they've had, at the back of our minds, we already know that there's some element of truth to it. We're basically just waiting to hear it come out of the horse's mouth. And then when it does come out, it's like, okay, we don't really know what to do with this information because, you know, number one, they're no longer our players. It's not really any of our concern, but it also has a negative impact on the club in terms of other players who may think or who want to come to the club. They also get insights on this. And they're like, is it really worth it? And sometimes we get lucky. You know, sometimes we do get lucky. But at the same time, you know, we get lucky in the sense of, yes, players still come. The Aiden Heavens, you know, the Chido Abu Martins, the Dogus. But, you know, we want the more experienced players, you know. And those more experienced and better players, they know better, right? And I'm not saying that the younger players are coming to United because they know how desperate we are and they know that they probably will be given a chance regardless. And they may have an exit plan. That's just a stepping stone to where they eventually want to be. I mean, having United in your CV is a good thing, regardless of where we currently are on the table, regardless of how far Manchester United has fallen. Wearing that shirt, it sets you up. There is no way you're going to leave Manchester United for a lesser team. There's just no way. If you're leaving Manchester United and you're leaving the Premier League, you know you're probably going to be got from not necessarily a big club, but at least a top 6 club, whichever league you're going to go to. So, yeah, that was Scott McTominay. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the description down below. Do you think McTominay was right to come out and say this? Did he have to say it? You know, because this is something that I think deep down every single Manchester United player already knew about. We already knew or had a feeling that Scott McTominay was misprofiled. Now, moving on to Alejandro Garnacho. So Alejandro Garnacho may or may not be up for sale. Um, Obviously, it's come out that he has sold his house, and it was backed by, no, I sold my house because my family moved and I don't need this big house. So, the whole downsizing thing. With Garnacho, right, and with these academy players that Manchester United want to move on, I'm looking at it from this point of view, right? When I look at Erik ten Hag and when I look at Ruben Amorim, these are they're very clear signals. They're very clear signs that, you know, the managers favor specific players in terms of how they talk about them in press conferences, right? Players that have been moved on, aka like, Pelestri, etc. You never found Ten Hag in a situation where he's talking so much about that player. And obviously, he wasn't utilized a lot at Manchester United when Ten Hag was there. He even went out on loan. Clearly, Ten Hag didn't favor Pelestri. And he made no mistake of alluding to the fact that he does prefer him or he does see him in the system. He never spoke about him. And when he did speak about him, mainly people were asking questions of, will he start, transfer, this and that. And it was very vague and quick, short answers, right? Same thing with Ruben Amorim, the way he spoke about Marcus Rashford before he went to Aston Villa. It really got it got to the point where he was literally telling them that, look, Marcus Rashford, I have nothing to say about him, no comment, right? When you look at Alejandro Garnacho, the way Ruben Amorim speaks of Garnacho is not in the sense of this is a player that's going to be moved on, even though the rumors are out there that there's certain academy players that are going to be moved on in the summer. Ruben Amorim hasn't alluded to anything that Garnacho is not going to be part of his plans in the future. He's been starting Garnacho regardless of how reckless he's been on the pitch. He has been speaking about him in the press conferences in terms of, he still needs to be developed. We're going to help him get to where he needs to get. What's the whole point of mentioning and saying all of this if he knows deep down that in the summer transfer window, Garnacho is going to leave? It's clear and obvious that definitely there have been discussions in the back. Right? In the background, there have been discussions between Ruben Amorim and Sir Jim and everybody else who is involved. Right? I don't think the club is going to wait until after the season to sit down and say, okay, now let's look at who do we keep, who do we sell. I think they already have an idea of who they want to stay at this club and who they want to move on. Right? Players like Christian Eriksen, obviously, yes, he has been starting because of injuries and stuff. He has been coming off the bench, but you can see he's not as utilized as he was under Erik ten Hag. He's a player clearly that is going to get moved on. But Alejandro Garnacho, I don't think so. The selling of the house thing, it's just one of those coincidences that just coincides with what's currently happening at the club. But I don't see it holding any real merit to a guaranteed fact that Garnacho will be sold. We know the club needs money. We know they need to regain the funds back. But this story, you have to take it with a grain of salt. You really have to just follow and read in between the lines and be very attentive to what's going on. Otherwise, you're going to scream and shout for no reason. Because there's no real indications, there's no real signals that Garnacho will be sold in the summer. And it will be a real shame. And if we do have to sell Garnacho, we cannot make that mistake of going for another younger player of his profile. We need to get experience. We need to. If that's going to be the move, get rid of Garnacho, use the money to get Victor Osimhen, then that has to be the move. But it can't be get rid of Garnacho and then bring in the same profile of player, because that is it's a waste. And I've already spoke about this in a previous video that I recorded. That is just going to be a waste of money. So yeah, Garnacho situation, keep your ears to the ground. And yeah, we see what's going to happen. We see what's going to happen. Derby day is coming up. This is the last thing I want to talk about. Derby day is coming up. We're playing City. And yeah, I don't know. It's I know I say I don't know a lot, and I guess it's the club. The club has just brought me to a position, to a point where I don't even know what to say anymore about certain things. But the Derby game, um, the Delo video that I made with the comment about, United, we can do this, da 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 da, and I sort of called it that, Delo's gonna be back up against, spilling a lot of, yeah, and he did, you know. Delo came out and he's looking very optimistic for this game, as he should. He's a United player. This is a United derby. It's a big game, all right, as he should. But I don't know. I don't know. Over the years, it's become a bit tricky. I want us to do well. I want us to go there. I want us to do the double. But at this current state of Manchester United, we just don't know you just don't know what's going to give. All right. The only saving grace we have for this match is the fact that Man City are not having a great season at all. Haaland's injured. De Bruyne is gonna be leaving. Foden hasn't been playing well. The defensive line have been leaking in goals. Ederson has not been on his game. It's a mess at City. It's a real mess. This match is honestly anyone's game. It's anyone's game. No one can go into this game cocky and feel like this is going to be a clear-cut win on either side. But you know what? I'm sort of going to give the advantage to Manchester United. And I know I have said that I haven't seen so much improvement in our game. And, there's still a lot of errors in our game that just lead to unnecessary losses or draws. But I still feel that going into this game, we're going to have better composure. And I think also psychologically, the fact that we beat them the first leg, going into this leg, I think City are going to be way more mentally worked, thinking that we can't allow them to do the double. We just cannot allow them to do the double on us this season. Whereas we have reached a point in this season where we go to a big game, no one is expecting us to win. Let's just play our game. Let's just do what we have to do. We've got nothing to lose. We're 13th place. We're going into this game with absolutely no pressure compared to City. City are currently still fighting to get into the top 4. We are not. Even if we wanted to get into the top 4, it just won't happen. Even if we win every single game from now until the end of the season, we're not getting into top 4. We're not getting into Europe. It's done. There's nothing for us. So going into this match is going to be way more stress-free for us than City going into this match. So mentally, we should have the advantage. But on the pitch, that's where it needs to count. We need Bruno to be on his ace. We need Garnacho to be on his ace. We do have players back from injury, but I don't think any of them are prepared to start in this game. I don't think so. So I think when you look at injuries from both sides, it's fair game. We have key injuries. They have key injuries. It should be an exciting match. It should be a good match to watch. And I am going to predict United win 2-1. That's going to be my prediction. I'm not going to give a predicted starting lineup, only based on the fact that I am not convinced about some of these players that have been mentioned in the press conference, where they're going to be. I don't know. I don't know if it's mind games or whatever. I know he doesn't play mind games and stuff like that, and I know it's highly unlikely for him to say, "Oh, this player's not ready," whatever, etc., and then the player actually does start. But looking at the tail end of this season, it's really been difficult to predict the starting 11. It has really been difficult. There have been some players that have been consistently starting, but there have been a lot of switcheroos, depending. And I think it is ultimately just dependent. It's been very dependent on the opponent who we are facing. So even looking at that midfield in the front three, I don't think it's as predictable as we want it to be. I think there are going to be some surprise starts in that match. But overall, I think it's going to be a good match. So I'm rooting for us to win. I'm rooting for us to win. I'm rooting for us to beat City 2-1 and do the double over them this season. I think that for us will probably be our greatest achievement this season. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think the score will be? Leave it in the description down below. What do you guys think how the game will go? Share your thoughts, share your opinions. Let's chat. And yeah, we'll catch y'all guys in the next one. Peace.